Hey, Craig. So what's up with all these crazy Trump people? Well, as a crazy Trump people, let me tell you. Yeah, let me tell you how I found myself down here in the rabbit hole. Uh, I voted for Trump the first time around, the second time around. And I voted for Trump not because of Donald Trump. I really didn't know much about the guy, but I knew he was a successful businessman, and that meant a lot to me because in business, it's all about efficiency. Doing the job the best you can so it costs the least amount of money. Get it done, get past it. And man, that's what we saw Trump do. We saw him do a great job of achieving goals, even with all the nonsense going on. He knocked out everything. Everything he told us he'd do, he did. He just completed the wall, and they're building another 300 miles of it. It's like in pre-construction. It's amazing. No wars, peace breaking out all over the Middle East. He did a great job. And, I'd sure love to see him there for another 4 years to keep going with all this because it's been really good for the country. But the thing about being a Trump voter and somebody that's kind of vocal about the fact that you support Trump is you're attacked constantly. And, I don't mind that because I like to kind of back up what I feel, and I don't mind doing the research to back it up. But almost immediately, really even before Trump was inaugurated, the attacks were just crazy, and they're accusing the man of all kinds of stuff, from being Putin's stooge to all kinds of salacious stuff, and I didn't really feel that was true to the character that I saw. Yeah, he's bombastic. I mean, the guy, he will tell you exactly what he thinks. And he upsets the apple cart a lot. But that's kind of how he gets it done. He gets people off balance and out of their comfort zone so that they have to take him seriously. And, we've talked about that before, how like his tweets and stuff like that are designed to force the press to look into things. He'll say something that sounds crazy. They'll call him crazy. And then the truth starts to percolate up. And it's, maybe the press doesn't report on that, but we see it later on. And, that's really been the whole Trump presidency is we see it later on. So getting back to my point, as a Trump supporter, I've had to back up a lot of what Trump did, and I didn't really know why he did the things he did, and so it forced me to look into these things, read the actual quotes or watch the actual video, and what I kept finding over and over. And I'm sure a bunch of other Trump supporters have felt this way. It's like, man, every time they accuse the guy of something, it comes out completely different. And, there was outrageous accusations at first. And, some of that stuff, it's like, wow, the whole Russian collusion thing's like, oh, that sounds horrible. But that just doesn't sound right. It was too outrageous. And the way that the left really just grabbed it and ran with it, nothing made sense. But we were always just a little cautious. You didn't want to stick your neck out too far because you were afraid that, well, maybe some of this stuff's true, and they sure acted like it was, right? You saw Schiff out there, blaming or accusing him of all kinds of stuff and saying it's absolutely true. I've seen the evidence. And then, you find out that when he was under oath downstairs in the skiff where, they have to speak the truth, he said the opposite. But, he comes back upstairs and he starts to tell his old lies. And we saw it certainly with the phone call, the Ukrainian phone call, right? Where he sort of fabricated this whole story and told us, oh, this is how it went down, and Trump's trying to muscle people around to do what he wants them to do, And then we, immediately the transcript is released, and I'm sure it shocked Schiff to death. But, then we all had a chance to look at it. And they're still like, no, no, no. See, it's awful. And we're like, there's nothing awful. And man, ironically, here we are at the end of the first term, and they're doing the same thing. I just don't understand why. I don't understand why the left doesn't really catch on, but they just keep rolling with this stuff. So, Trump has just been impeached for the second time, impeached in a record-breaking like one day. Where's the hearings? Where's any of the things that are supposed to take place? They didn't exist. It's like you can't take any of this stuff seriously anymore. It's like these people are so pathetic. They cannot leave this man alone. But getting back on track, like I said, we've had to try to look up the answers because we're curious. We didn't want to vote for some guy that's as bad as they describe, and we wanted to reassure ourselves that we're not idiots. And the more you look, the more you see, right? And not only have I been reassured that I'm not an idiot for supporting Trump, but I've been really encouraged, and I've really felt like I wanted to speak up more. And especially this year, well, now we're in 21, but in 2020, I would comment on Bookface, as I call it, and I would support the president, but it becomes kind of tiresome because it's the same characters that want to just attack, and I'm guilty to a certain degree. If I see somebody post something that's ridiculous, I'm going to chime in and say that's absurd. But I want to give you a reason why I think so. And so I got to type out this long response, and then they type in something, it goes back and forth. And I hate typing. I'm horrible at it. I have to look at the keyboard while I do it, and I don't have great eyesight up close anyway. So, after doing this and getting to the point where it's like, this is wearing me out, I was really starting to think about, I should just do like videos of this stuff, as if anyone would watch them. But that was just sort of in the back of my mind because I didn't know how to go about doing anything like that. And time went on, and with the COVID shutdown, I was inspired to do some music videos. I write and record music, and I've never done a video, and I thought it would be a hoot, and I had a lot of fun doing them. And as I was publishing my videos, and they were coming out on a pretty regular basis, I was trying for almost about one a week, get through the whole lockdown nonsense. And eventually, it was Memorial Day. I was going to repost a video I had just completed because it was appropriate. It was a song I call Liberty, and seemed right. So I paid my $10 on Bookface. You have to, especially as a musician or any business, you have to pay extra for them to actually what they call boost the post. But what they do is they don't put the post out unless you spend the money. So unless you've got some hardcore fans that look for your stuff, even a lot of your friends aren't going to see stuff that you post, even if they've already said they like it and they'll accept your posts. Because it's a money-making operation. I don't really have a problem with that. I kind of wish they'd be more honest about it. But anyway, I boosted my post. Immediately, it was rejected, and I was flabbergasted. It was they didn't really explain why, but in the ad, the picture that the image I was using, I've got the American flag behind me. I'm looking kind of patriotic with a microphone. It's not a big deal, but we were starting to feel this anti-Trump agenda coming up from the social media sites at that point, and I realized, oh my God, I was just censored, and it hit me like a ton of bricks. I've certainly been censored in different ways in the past, but this one really hit me. I was just flush for a good 10 minutes. And it just really hit me. It's like, wow, there's an agenda here. For real. Not us just kind of bantering back and forth, but I mean, like, there's something going on here. And started to hear it more and more from other people. First it was sort of like the way out there stuff that you kind of hear about, but you don't know much about it. So you're like, well, okay, maybe, but it's kind of weird that they would do that, especially since, all those West Coast companies are they've always been, free speech and, you got to recognize everybody, even if you don't want to, kind of thing. And we've all accepted that. That's, whatever. If it's your thing and it's not breaking a law and it's not super vulgar, go ahead. I don't care. But that's not the people they were stopping. It was people that had political opinions that might have sounded kind of radical to some people, but not terribly radical to others. And it wasn't violent. Although they try to kind of frame it as if it were. But anyway, we certainly heard about it. Then I experienced it, and I didn't know what to do. And this is about the same time Rush Limbaugh, who I enjoy listening to when I get a chance, had announced that he was facing some serious cancer, and it just sort of struck me. It's like, man, I need to try this. I just need to put my voice out there. No one's going to listen to me, but I'm going to feel better like I'm just saying it. Preach to the choir. And so I started doing this. And so the reason I'm telling you this whole story and why are Trump people seemingly so crazy is there's all those guys out there making videos have been through sort of similar things, for one reason or another. For me, it was music. For others, it was interest in history or aliens or whatever it was. People had a presence online discussing things that they were passionate about. And they got caught up in this whole political thing just like the rest of us have. And they use their platform to tell you about things that they've discovered. And it's been fascinating. And I didn't pay a whole lot of attention to a lot of these guys until the last, I don't know, maybe half of a year or so. Certainly 2020 gave us all a little bit more time to look into this stuff. But as we got more passionate about the election and as we started to see more weird things happen, we saw how the whole COVID thing was suddenly, mutated into this weird legal and political battle of rights, where, you got to wear a mask. First we didn't have to, then we had to. And just all the questions and the lack of seriousness about, proving their point. It all just started to seem so bizarre. But in the summer, then of course we saw how there was suddenly riots and things breaking out all over the country that it just didn't seem organic. There was something about it all that just seemed really contrived, especially to us people that have been watching this with a skeptical eye since the beginning. So, as we get more and more involved and we get into the election season itself, there were all kinds of things that would come to the forefront, try to get people kind of wrapped up, get their passions elevated, get you to go out and vote. And so, people looking for information or something to talk about tapped into more and more of these things, just curious, what are we talking about with these people? Certainly the allegations against Trump never really went away, even as they were able to prove things when they had the opportunities. The press would never report on the aftermath. They just, they'd try to tell you some sort of story, some narrative. And even if later on that was all taken apart and disproved, they just kept going on to the next one. You know what I mean? It's been like, it doesn't matter the truth. We're just going to make up stories and throw them out there and see which ones stick. So, we get to the election and we saw what happened. I mean, it was kind of obvious in the aftermath. Even Trump came out right away. I mean, that night, late at night, and said, hey, we know we won this, but, we're seeing what's happening here. And he warned everybody. And, it just sort of, from that point forward, it's been this weird, this counter reality of where we're supposed to accept these numbers that don't make any sense, that people keep finding anomalies within, and we're told over and over there's nothing to see there. We've always been taught, well, you resolve these kinds of differences in the court, and you saw all these cases go to court while you're watching people, signed affidavits and all this, telling us about fraud. And these aren't people that have never been to an election before. These are people with years and years of experience and volunteers, serious people. Then you see like these guys, these number cruncher guys that work for banks and do audits like that. And they're saying, oh, we're looking at these numbers and this doesn't make any sense at all. And even the bookies and the hardcore bettors were like, hold it, this stinks. So when you start to hear more and more about what went wrong in the election and what kind of shenanigans may have taken place, we're hearing on the other side louder and louder, no, there's nothing to see and you can't look. Okay, we'll do a recount, but we'll only do it in this area where we control it and you still can't see what we're up to. And we're just going to count the same ballots through the same machines, even though you're saying that's what the problem is. And, the funny thing is they did that and they said, no, see, it all coming out the same. But I keep hearing stories where, no, they didn't come out the same. The numbers weren't the same. And you hear stories about, well, we've had the opportunity to audit a few machines, and they're all acting screwy. We'll audit these things over and over. We'll run the votes through them over, and we get different numbers. And then the records of the memory inside is scrubbed or removed. But we can still see the results from prior elections, but not this most recent. You're seeing all the stuff you'd expect when something's been taking place that wasn't supposed to. And remember, it's everybody's right to question elections, and they're supposed to have every single way to prove that nothing happened here. And they didn't show us any of that stuff. They didn't give us access to any of that stuff. They just said no, and these official people say no, and you're just going to have to accept it, and it's a hoax, and you're nuts. And we're like, well, no, it's all right here. I mean, come on, take this seriously. Take a look at this. And they're like, selectively, well, okay, well, we'll count over here. It's been, no one's taken it seriously on the other side at all. And so, of course, we're only left with questions. And we have the feeling that the other side is like, well, if we just keep blocking them out, eventually they'll just go away. They'll just have to accept this. But you're talking 75 million people. A lot of people voted for Trump, more than ever voted for president before. And they're saying, well, Biden was even more, which how? So... And what you see in almost all the countries, he didn't really do so great. He only did really, really, really well in exactly the places he had to do really, really, really well. And then you see where people like Zuckerberg poured hundreds of millions of dollars into these get out the vote campaigns, right, where they have like a drop box on every corner. And, meanwhile, it's nothing like that out in the sticks where all the Republicans live. They don't give them the same time of day. So we've seen all of this stuff. And, we're hoping to see something happen in the courts, and it just didn't. They're like, no. They wouldn't even look at the evidence. They didn't look at the evidence. They might have looked at a little bit from, a lot of people brought these suits as individuals. Everyone was trying to figure out, how do we do this? And they turned those down because they weren't constructed properly. But, it was like, the T was crossed here, and it should have been crossed right here. Just... not literally, but you know what I'm saying. It was ridiculous. And then the big hope was, of course, well, to make it up to the Supreme Court, and then they'll finally do it. And then the Supreme Court's like, no, we don't really want to look at it. I don't know if Texas can bring it. It's like, what are you talking about? This is a big deal. This is a presidential election. They were involved with the Bush versus Gore thing. But then you start to feel like, well, it's got to go to the Congress because it's the Constitution says it's Congress's job. So all that's set up and the dueling electors and all that goes forward and then blasted, right? Now, we've talked about all this stuff, but what is it? Well, in the meanwhile, while we're waiting for the 20th, we were waiting for the 6th, and then, of course, we got past that. Now it's waiting again. And then we see this, the attack on the Capitol thing, which, obviously, these aren't Trump people. These are the same radical idiots that have been disruptive all summer, all over the place. It's the same guys. I mean, it's easy. Some of these guys really stick out. And, we've been really mad about the riots over the summer anyway. And so, we've gotten to know some of these guys. And of course, the FBI knows who these guys are and local police. And now we're finding out that, wow, they actually had knowledge that something probably would happen even days before it happened. But as you saw, there was like no police there at all. It was weird. One of the most secure buildings in America. And there was like, I wasn't very impressed by the police presence. I mean, they tried to do something for as few as there were. But I mean, it didn't look like they were taking it really seriously. And then, we've all seen the videos of the Trump supporters trying, they're yelling, Antifa, Antifa, and they stop these guys, where they could. But yeah, sometimes I'm sure they got some folks wound up along with them. Let's storm this thing. But, these are anarchists. They don't care about Trump or Pelosi or anybody. They just like to tear things apart. So we're seeing all this. And then, wham, right after this, everyone's, I can't believe this happened, and these Trump people have attacked the Capitol, and spare me. After listening to Democrats for 4 years call us every name in the book and just get ugly, and get in their face and all this, it's like, spare me. But anyway, I think any Trump supporter could have looked at that, because we were all watching this stuff on TV and say, nah, that looks weird to me. I don't trust this, And then the characters and all, they don't ring sincere. It's funny. I heard somebody describe Trump supporters as it's like kind of like going to a patriotic church picnic, and a bunch of your biker buddies come over too. It's just sort of like, hey, it's a bunch of middle-aged white people. We're well armed. But it's not to go attack the Capitol. It's to protect our homes. We're well armed because we don't want these riotous mobs coming in our neighborhood and trying to take things over. We're not going to put up with it. Maybe in some of the cities where all the woke people are afraid to have guns, and certainly you see what happens to them. My God, if they're armed, they come out and warn you, hey, stay off my yard. Man, they're right in the papers and ridiculed and go to court, and they're ruined, right? That's how the left works against us. But no, we're well armed because we don't care about all that if somebody's attacking our family. That's simple. So coming up here, I think on the 17th, there were flyers being passed out. We're gonna raid these capitals. We're gonna cause all this trouble, and they've called out all the National Guard and everything else. It's not Trump supporters that are going to be your problem, all right? And we all know it. And we've seen all this unwind, and now we've seen how, the FBI and others are starting to admit, well, maybe they knew something about it, and maybe we don't want to release, exactly all the information because it might be embarrassing to some public officials, stuff like that. It's like, oh, I see what happened. So that's what's driving us crazy. But let me dive into one other thing real quick. There's another element. There's the Q element. And, like I said, a lot of us got started because we had passions about other things. And then, we were able to sort of focus our passion on Trump. I don't know anything about Q or any of this stuff. But I certainly enjoy watching the new stuff that's coming out. It gives you hope. It's kind of crazy. I'm sure a lot of it, as I said, there's a lot of us individually that had other interests. We're going to mix all these things together. We're going to create a great story for you. But it's never a great story unless it seems like it could be true. And when you look at some of these posts that are, there's QAnon and Q, and there's different levels of like who has the best access. Some of it's really intriguing in that it's like, you read it like backwards, time-wise and all this, and it seems to have some really amazing coincidental, coincidences. I don't know how else to put it. Is it a huge plan? I don't know. I don't know anyone at that level. I'm just, a guy that does research on the edge of the continent here in South Carolina. A lot of it I'd love to be true. But I like the pedophilia thing and the alien thing. I have not had time to ever look into any of that stuff, and I know people are weird, and I know people are awful. I already knew that. So I hope the pedophilia thing. It's just too gross. I just really hope that's not a real thing. I mean, I know it exists. God, we all know that. But I mean, I hope it's not like this big deal like they make it out to be. And, John Kennedy Jr. walking out and all that. I mean, I don't know about any of that. I'm not putting any real trust in any of that. But I do see the things that Trump has said and the actions he has taken. And I do see a real path. I mean, here's a guy that is tough as nails, and he does tend to win, and he does think long term. So I don't know if he's got 200 generals behind him and all this, but I know that he's got a crew that he trusts. I know that he's made a lot of changes at the top, especially when it comes to military. I know the Space Force has got tremendous abilities of surveillance and tapping into computers. I don't know about the Vatican and all that stuff. I have no idea. It'd be cool. It'd be super cool if they could, as I understand it, Trump was down in that skiff, that secure area, watching the election results. And I don't think it's a stretch to imagine that he was watching the real-time results before they hit the server. They have this level of surveillance through the NSA that is amazing, but I believe that there's even a more complex network that they're using now. Is it the algorithm computer or the quantum computer? I've heard that they use sentient, which is a artificial intelligence system to anticipate things going on that monitors complex systems. That's not crazy. Certainly Google uses platforms like that, to understand us, and that stuff's been out there for a long time. The military, I think, would back Trump because he has been their champion. But not only that, but he has laid out exactly, as we talked about last time, how the oath of office has been broken over and over and over. They're not following the Constitution in Congress anymore. They've just thrown it out the window. They didn't seriously look at those dueling electors. They didn't do their job. And Trump has really, absolutely given everyone every single chance to do the right thing. And he's told them. I've heard him say it, in that phone call that they misconstrued entirely to Kemp. If you listen to the whole thing, he tells them what he saw. And they're like, no. And he's like, okay, you can't find me these votes here to turn it. No, can't do it. And he's like, well, I know the truth. So, as crazy as some of that stuff is out there, and as much as we all are just dying to hear something, I think one of the messages inside of those releases is very true. It's going to be a while before we know what's going on. If they're doing something, they're already doing it. And it's going to be quiet because it has to be. You're not going to see major big people fall until the very last minute. And certainly, I'll tell you what, I think Trump has every reason to question Biden and Pelosi on just mental stability. The thing that they're trying to accuse him of, they show every sign of having trouble. I mean, really. Look at how they act. Not like a professional, but just childish and bizarre. Just say some bizarre things. And, you can watch Trump and watch the entirety, Trump speaking at the wall just a few days ago. And you tell me if that's somebody that's nuts. And then you watch Biden and Pelosi. And then you listen to the beeper, which says, I'm done. Thanks for listening. I hope this makes some sense to you. If you're a Trump supporter, I know it makes sense to you. And I know it's a little heartbreaking to think, well, maybe some of that stuff's not true. But it doesn't all have to be true. Remember, we fight on regardless because we're defending our homes. Thanks for listening. Have a great day.